This is the Doing Scary Things podcast. I'm Katie. I'm a veteran photographer, a serial entrepreneur, an aspiring author, and a relentless optimist. I'm a slow-talking, deep thinker from the Appalachian Mountains.
I'm Anna. I'm a prodigal musician, an accidental psychotherapist, and I'm living life mostly by experiment and endless curiosity. I'm a redheaded speed talker from a Midwestern farm town.
The purpose of this podcast is to talk to people who are doing some pretty scary things in their life about what it takes for them to push past fear and keep themselves going every day.
We'll also unpack the vulnerable things we're pursuing in our own lives and hopefully offer encouragement to you wherever you are on your journey.
Man, that was brilliant.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. We got to talk with Eric Stoff. He's about to embark on an incredible journey with his wife and kids that involves hitting the road with his whole family in an RV to make memories, music, and a living along the way in their new mobile lifestyle. We had a blast talking to Eric about the scary things he and his family are doing together this year. We hope you enjoy it. So Eric Stoff, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I would be happy to. As you already shared, my name is Eric Stoff. I just had my 28th birthday. I live in Carmel, Indiana with my lovely wife, Brooke, our daughter, Holland. We have another baby on the way. Don't know the gender, so we don't know the name yet. And then we have 2 dogs as well.
And what are their names?
Sumatra is a Boykin Spaniel, and McGregor is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Amazing.
It is.
So much personality in those dogs.
Now, do you have names chosen for when you eventually find out the gender? Or are you still working on it?
We do. We have first names chosen.
Okay.
Middle names are still up in the air, but if it's a boy, we'd like to name him Otto. And if it's a girl, Martha, shortened to Marty.
Cute.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I feel very honored that you shared that with us.
I know.
You should.
So it'll be Otto up in the air or Martha up in the air. Marty up in the air.
Yeah, for Marty, we like the middle name Lee, Marty Lee, and for Otto, Thomas or James.
Love it.
All family names, like across the board, so.
Well, very cool. Well, it sounds like you have a lot going on in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day life and some of the things you're pursuing right now?
Sure. So I am a musician. My wife and I own a network marketing business together, and then I also have a grant writing business. So we are entrepreneurs, self-employed. Our day-to-day looks different every day. But most of the time, it's all of the family here in our townhouse, grinding away on multiple projects. So
Yeah. Busy, but like exciting, self-starter kind of busy.
definitely busy. We're actually trying to be a little less busy. We've been really trying to be a little bit more disciplined about taking real Sabbaths every week. It might not be Sunday, but trying to take a weekly Sabbath day and like turn off phones, just reconnect and celebrate what we have and what we've been blessed with, rather than like constantly striving for more, trying to go up radical in the opposite way.
That's super cool. I definitely understand that struggle of the day-to-day looking really different and trying to also do a lot of different tasks and fit it all into one day. I know that can be a challenge for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Am I understanding correctly that your latest album that you just recently released, did you record that on your own? And what was that process kind of like?
Yeah, we released Little Flock on January 1st, New Year's Day. And yes, it was all self-produced, self-recorded. The only thing that wasn't recorded in our office, in our spare room, was the drums, which were recorded at our church. And then saxophone was recorded in Illinois by an old friend of ours. He's a band director, so I went to his band room and recorded saxophone there.
Nice.
But yeah, everything else was recorded in the room right above me in our spare room office, and all self-produced. That whole process was basically the entire year of 2018. I had kind of a mess of demos at the beginning of 2018, and I wanted to push them as far as I could in a year. And I know a year doesn't sound like a lot of time for most musicians, but for me, that's really drawing out the process. I like to work fast and work on deadlines, So making myself take that whole year was kind of an act of discipline in and of itself. So I worked on Little Flock from January 1st, and it ended up being finished right before Christmas and then released on New Year's Day.
I'm curious if sharing your music with other people is kind of like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
For me, admitting I'm an artist or owning that as part of my identity, and in fact my truest identity, is third on the list after like child of God, husband and father, boom, musician, like I'm an artist. That is out of my comfort zone. So sharing my music confidently and honestly and vulnerably, yeah, that is not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, it's like a natural extension of that acknowledgement, I guess.
Yeah.
Of that part of your identity.
It's something I care very deeply about, and I crave so badly to share it and for it to be received well and impact other people, but it's also really nerve-wracking. And just to step into that artist role and own it is something I'm still learning how to do.
Yeah.
After being an artist for, half my life now.
That's really interesting. I mean, I definitely relate to that, but can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, so when you say, it's third on the list, it is who I am. Maybe for people who can't relate, what is it about that that's hard to share?
I think for me, pursuing a life as an artist or as a musician as your main thing was never really encouraged, or maybe wasn't a viable option if I wanted to support a family. I always kind of had in the back of my mind, well, I've got to work this job to support myself. Even if I'm single, I've got to have a job to pay the bills and then play music on the side. It never really seemed all that realistic to have music pay the bills, and it still doesn't pay many bills, but we've kind of come up with a way with our network marketing business to fund our passions and let those kind of take a front seat.
Yeah.
I really believe it's important for everybody to connect to that creativity piece. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so many people, whatever it is, that because they haven't been encouraged or because they don't see it as realistic, do just totally miss that piece of themselves, whether it be for their whole life or for long periods of their life.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear you say that. And yet you do have a family, you do have a wife, and you have figured out a way to still let this be what it is. And it's, a huge part of you.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
It's a whole strategy. Like, there are real pros that come with doing it that way too. Like, you're not putting the pressure on your music to like support you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people's inner artists like cracks under that pressure if it's applied,
So I've been talking to my friends about licensing and what that could look like, and is it my music that I've already released that could be licensed for something, or is it something that I would have to write new music and kind of go for a certain sound or message to have, really pursue that as something that could be licensed? I don't know if I could do that. That's just something that doesn't excite me as an artist.
Yeah.
Creating things for certain purposes. I want to have pure self-expression.
Well, personally, I tend to feel more about it the way you do, I think. Like, I want to create something authentic that means a lot, that's, expressive, and then hopefully there's a spot for that to fit.
Right. Rather
than like, here's a prompt and write to it. Although I will say I do really enjoy writing to a prompt. Like, if there was a company that wanted only songs for bar mitzvahs or something, like, it's like, awesome, I'm going to crank out 10 bar mitzvah songs. But like, that wouldn't really...
You do like that. That's totally up your alley.
But, right, I'm all about it.
Loves a good challenge when it comes to young Jewish people.
Nothing will beat Hava Nagila. Okay. But what I'm saying is, like, that sounds fun, but it's still totally not the same thing as, like, writing your own music that means something to you.
Yeah.
It's just a totally different kind of challenge,
For sure.
So, this notion of an RV.
Yeah.
I think we might have a question about that.
Yeah, how many questions do you have about that?
Depends on how scary it is.
Okay.
Well, you mentioned you're currently in a townhouse.
Yep.
Are you keeping the townhouse, or is that about to change?
Yeah, our townhouse, our lease is up at the end of May. My job ends at the end of June. Baby's due in July. So there's kind of like this rapid succession of all these things coming to an end, like this chapter is ending and a new one is beginning. So we'll go month to month on our lease until mom and baby are ready to hit the road. With our first daughter, we actually went to New York for a wedding, I think 2 weeks after she was born. So it all depend on second baby. We're going to move out of Carmel, not keep the townhouse. We're going to move into an RV that is like a third renovated right now. It's been kind of torn apart. It hasn't been built back together yet, or like decorated in a way that we want to live in it. But we bought an RV in September of last year, and it's in storage right now. This spring we'll be renovating it, moving into it, and then hitting the road hopefully in August.
To what level have you planned where you want to go? Are you leaving a lot of flexibility because you want to be able to be whimsical? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, we have like a general idea because we'll need to be close-ish to the Midwest for baby visits after baby number 2 is born. Those are like every 2 weeks and then every month and so on. So in the fall, it will probably look like a couple short legs here and there, maybe up to Michigan or Canada or something like that. But then once the winter hits, we plan on staying south, except for the holidays.
Nice.
Rough plan, but right now we're just kind of collecting places and ideas of where to go and what to do.
It strikes me that you really need to use a lot of wisdom and plan really, really well, but the whole point of the plan is to have flexibility. So yeah. It's like an interesting balance.
Yeah, I mean, we've road tripped a lot, but we've never had our house with us. It's weird. It's our house and it's our vehicle.
Right.
So it's hard to really plan for that. And we've also not had 2 babies on the outside. So that's another thing that you can't really plan for. But we're just trying to not plan too much because we know as soon as we plan, it's going to be kind of thrown out the window.
Well, and that raises an interesting question too. Like, in absence of being able to plan things like that, experiences you've never had, what do you rely on to know that it's going to be okay?
Our faith in God and our belief and faith in his provision for us is one big thing. We feel called to make this life change. We felt called to travel and be quasi-nomads for multiple years. So that's a desire that's not really gone away, and it's now that we have the opportunity to do it. So we do feel called to this change, and that gives me a lot of peace knowing that we're going to be okay. But Brooke and I make a really good team. I know that her and I work really well together. Under pressure or not under pressure, I've been pretty pleased with the decisions we've made and how we've worked together in crisis and in peace for the last 10 years. So
yeah,
I trust us. I trust God.
That's awesome. Like, you guys, you know that kind of whatever happens, you can figure it out on the fly if you need to.
Yeah, Brooke is an incredibly optimistic person. I am not by nature, but she has kind of taught me how to be that way and how to look on the bright side. And
she has that effect on people.
She
sure.
does. She does. She is
she does.
A ray of sunshine.
Yeah.
Whether you want it or not.
Yes.
We were talking about creativity earlier and how everyone is creative to some degree. Hers is not necessarily with, like creating music or creating, visual art. I even consider cooking an outlet for my creativity. That's not so much for her. She's very creative when it comes to problem solving. Mm-hmm. And how to like lead people and bring out the best in people. So, she's an amazing person and totally someone I'm thrilled to be with when we're on the road and having to improvise a lot.
That's amazing. Well, I wanted to back up a little bit and ask a few questions because obviously you've known Anna for a long time, but yep. I want to talk to you for our listeners who are just hearing this idea for the first time.
Sure.
And, you're saying it so casually, we're about to have our second baby and move into an RV. And I feel like there was probably like a little bit of like a, what did he just say? So talk to me about this. Obviously, you have a very supportive wife. I think that goes without saying.
Yeah.
How did this all come to be to where it went from maybe original idea to okay, we're actually taking the steps. We have now bought the RV. We are now renovating it. We have sort of a projected move-in date. So was that years of dreaming? Was that something you guys talked about in the beginning, or has that morphed over the years?
It has been something that has come up several times throughout our marriage. We've been married for 5 years. We've been together for more than 10 now. And we've thought about basically being full-time travelers, because and we've had very pointed discussions about this as well, as like, when do we feel most like ourselves? When do we feel like we're, living out a passion and a purpose? And I feel the most like Eric Stoff, and Brooke feels the most like Brooke Stoff, and we're just like working it as a team. And that's when we're traveling. That's been on our road trips, and we have tent camped for every single one of those before. We've never had an RV or been a traveler in an RV. But when we had Holland, the thought came up, could we still do that? Could we still be full-time travelers? And the answer was yes, totally. Brooke was a little bit scared. At one point, she was like, but have you ever seen the wild thornberries? Eliza had such a hard time making friends. I don't want our kids to do that. But
I love that she's thinking of your daughter, not herself.
Why is your potential son's name not going to be Nigel? That's my question.
I thought my name was Nigel. If in this situation, like if I'm the dad, isn't he the...
Well, that's true. Okay, fair. So yeah, life lessons from the wild thornberries. Yeah, upsetting.
Right.
Yeah, how are you going to make friends? How are you going to... And I guess homeschool, question mark?
Brooke was homeschooled, and we're not opposed to doing that, but also Holland's only 18 months, so she's not like right on the cusp of kindergarten or anything like that. We can decide that within the next year or two. But we had Holland, and we thought, yes, we can still do this if the opportunity comes up. And then late last summer, we were thinking, do we want to try for number 2? Or do we want to do this RV thing? We were kind of like trying to weigh those two options. And Brooke and I decided to go for the RV, make that decision. And, oh, by the way, if we get pregnant, does that change things? And we had discussions about that. And we thought, no, we're of the thought that the best thing for our kids is just to be with at least one, hopefully both parents, as much as possible. Just spend as much family time as possible. And traveling is also one of the best educators there is. Life experience and all the things that traveling throws at you is just, it really can shape you as a person really well. So we thought, are we still willing to do that if we have a second baby? And how does that change things? And we thought, yes. So we went ahead and bought the RV, and a couple months later found out we were expecting number 2. So that's when our timeline got defined. That's when we had due date for a baby. We can't leave until after that because we don't want to have a baby on the road. Now that would be over our line, as far as scary things go.
So, listeners, for anyone who's wondering where the line is, there is one.
Delivering a baby in an RV, me as the midwife. Yeah, that would not go well.
Being an artist and living in a small space on the road, like a lot of artists do, actually, do you have any provisions in mind for being able to record stuff or make music while you're on the road? How's that going to work?
Yeah, I've been paring down my gear over the last few months, kind of selling things I don't want or I know I won't use on the road. There'll be some stuff I put in storage, but basically my rig for recording is small as is. And my laptop audio interface, and then if I'm recording guitar, it's just an electric guitar through my Helix floor into the MacBook. Or if I'm recording like my voice or something else, that I'm a condenser mic. I've never been too picky about like an isolation booth. So I've been kind of paring everything down to be able to fit basically under our bed when we're on the road.
Cool.
I love that. I love that with both your family, your daughter, and even this, your music, it's not a reason for you not to do this. Even with what you were saying about your daughter is we actually think this will be great for her, and I totally believe that too. I think that's such a great educator to let kids experience things and be out in the world. And I think that's amazing.
You know how adaptable you become by living on the road and not having a different routine every day.
Yeah.
It drives some people crazy, and it'll drive us crazy too, I'm sure, some days. But I do think it'll be a great learning tool.
Also, just meeting people that are so different than you. I feel like that's a huge takeaway that I've had from my own travels is, it's not possible to stay in a box where you only meet people who believe the same as you and were raised the same as you, and that can be so eye-opening as well.
Right.
So we usually ask our guests if they're doing something in their life that's scaring them. And obviously we've talked about kind of what you've got going on. Does any of that feel scary to you? Does it feel normal? What is a scary aspect of it, if you wouldn't mind to share with us?
Yeah, it is definitely scary. There's like this kind of underlying tone of fear that I work really hard to not let that fear overtake me, kind of push past it and remind myself of truths that I know. The thing that is most scary to me, I guess there are a couple different things, and it all has to do with my family's safety on the road. Driving is one of the most dangerous things we do, and we're choosing a lifestyle that involves a lot of driving. Also, people, my fellow humans, are the most dangerous creatures I will encounter. Grizzly bears do frighten me, but not more than someone who's out of their right mind. You have to accept the fact that you can't control other people. All you can do is do your best to protect your own family and pray for God's provision and safety over you. And then our health. Brooke and I are extremely healthy. Holland has never had a health issue. Adding in a new baby to the mix, you never know. Their first few months of life they can be kind of tumultuous. So kind of keeping an eye on that and making sure we're not doing anything stupid. I know some people might say that moving into an RV with a newborn baby is just stupid, period. But stupid by our standards.
Well, exactly. And that's whose opinion counts in this case.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that's super insightful and, things I've never had to think about as a woman with no kids. But I love that. I find that really inspiring that it's not like you're throwing caution to the wind, like you're actually thinking through these things and you're not letting fear hold you back, which is something else we talk about a lot. It's like fear is always going to be there. There are possibilities that these things could happen. So let's just take that into account and keep moving forward towards what we want and what's important to us.
Yeah. And something you said earlier too, which I think, Eric Stoff demonstrates so well, is that whole idea of, well, there are these factors that have to be considered, but never have we thought of them as barriers. We always think of them as like, it's a factor. So how are we going to account for that factor? How are we going to make considerations that are going to allow us to pursue something, not even in spite of it, but just like including it, Yeah. I think that's amazing. And that's a mindset that is not natural, I feel like, to human beings. We're usually like, uh-oh, there's a barrier. Well, darn, that's it. And
right. Yeah, in reality, a lot of the barriers that have been brought up to us are just like slightly more extreme than what we face in everyday life. Driving a lot. We drive a lot in Carmel. We drive a lot around Indianapolis. Any one of us could get very sick right here at home. We could be robbed. We could have some sort of intruder, or like all those threats exist. But you don't think that they exist when you're in your comfort zone. It's only when you step out of your comfort zone that you become a little bit more aware of them, or people like to point them out to you when they're concerned for you.
Yeah, it's like it nods a little bit to just a false sense of security too.
Right.
Which is not absolutely. To say everyone should just be paranoid all the time about everything, but it's just like on the flip side of that, like you're saying, you're really not that much, maybe incrementally less safe, unless you're just being unwise. But hopefully anybody who had concerns about that at any point, hearing you talk about it, understands that you've put a lot of thought and you have used a lot of wisdom in crafting this plan,
As you've shared your plans with friends and family, have you met a lot of resistance? Are there a lot of people trying to talk you out of it?
A lot of friends have been very supportive. The friends that aren't supportive, I don't think are saying anything. That's the way that has gone. I think, if I'm reading those interactions correctly, and just a little bit of resistance from family. When I told my mom, she pretty much said, like, that sounds crazy to me, but it sounds right up your alley. And I think my dad said, I think you're crazy, but best of luck. If anyone can make it work, it's you and Brooke. So that's the extent of the resistance, which from my parents is pretty mild.
Yeah. Like, I think thanks for the vote of confidence,
right.
maybe.
I was like, hey, that is very encouraging. I'll take it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was going to say, as someone who has heard similar things in my life, sometimes I feel like it's hard for parents to relate or to know how to support you. So I think them saying, this isn't what I would have chosen, but you can do it, that is huge.
Yeah.
That's really encouraging.
You might want to interview my mom for the Doing Scary Things podcast and letting her son and her daughter-in-law take two of her grandbabies on the road.
She's like, the scariest thing I'm doing is not a thing I'm doing at all.
Yeah.
It's a thing someone else is doing.
It's watching my son.
Yeah. Right. Yikes.
Yeah.
We love you, Mom. Thanks. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mom. Given your spirit of adventure and ingenuity and lifestyle of pursuing kind of scary things, what do you think your next scary thing might be?
I don't know. Can't the RV be the next scary thing? I'm not really thinking much past that right now.
Yeah. Well,
we will check back with you. But I love thinking about that. When that's your day to day, you got two babies running around.
Right.
Where do you go from there?
Right. Well, and that is totally an acceptable answer. Can the RV count for that? Yes, it absolutely can.
Yeah,
and
that's still a few months out.
It's a major brain picking session. I mean, most of our interviews are like that. But that's interesting to me because I think with some things you can say, okay, I really can't think past this thing because I'm wholeheartedly pursuing this thing. I'm not thinking about the next thing. But then with other things, it's like some of the intermediate steps are scary enough that, that's your scary thing, but it's also on a path that's leading to more scary things related to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everything's kind of building up to our departure date in August, we think in August. But we're committing to 12 months on the road because we know the first few months are going to be rough. We want to really make sure we give it a fair shake and then reevaluate, in the summer of 2020. So, our departure date is scary to me, but it will probably continue to be scary in different things we do on the road, or if we're having mechanical issues, or if we want to go somewhere more adventurous than we have been used to at some point. There's going to be more scary things coming up during that year on the road. I don't know if anything will ever feel comfortable during those 12 months.
Yeah.
I love that point though. And I do want to hear your answer after you've done it for a year, because it is that thing where once you do something the first time, it does get a little bit easier. We talk about that across the board, whether it's singing or whatever, it's you hit your departure date, you're on the road, things go pretty well. I want to know, does it feel easy after that?
Yeah.
It's worthwhile to highlight the idea of giving it a fair shake. I love that you guys have built that into your plan. You're letting your lease run out and you've bought an RV. So you're pretty invested in this as an experience. And yet you are going to allow for changes. You're going to reevaluate the whole project after a year, but you're also committing to a certain extent so that you can really get through, the transition basically.
Right.
And I think a lot of people quit during the transition.
Totally.
A lot of people stop working out during the warm-up phase. They never, fully hit their stride and break the sweat.
Yeah. Like if you guys get out on the road, the first night and you look at each other and you're like, what are we doing? It's gotta get easier,
Right.
And then Sue looks at you at the same time.
But I can't tell because her eyes are crooked.
The dog's giving you the side eye.
Zoinks.
I do not approve.
No.
Love it.
She's kind of always giving the side eye. No matter what.
Do you want to talk any about your musical project and what that process was like, or even just tell us about it a little bit?
Sure. Little Flock has become kind of a pet name for my family. I highlighted it in my Bible a few years ago. Can you hear Holland crying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How apropos.
We'll leave it in.
I highlighted it in my Bible a few years ago. I don't remember exactly when I was reading it, but Jesus refers to his disciples as little flock. He says, don't be afraid, little flock. And it always kind of struck me as like, I've always loved the metaphor of sheep needing Christ as a shepherd. But the fact that he called us his little flock, like we're nothing without him. And I highlighted and I wrote next to it cool band name. I still think it would be a cool band name, but it ended up being the album title for a record that deals a lot with, I think it deals a lot with my identity shift, becoming a dad, and how that massive change in my life affects my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my child and future children, and then also kind of reevaluating myself and my identity, and that's been kind of the catalyst for me stepping into my identity and owning my identity as an artist, really being more confident in that. But the album is 11 tracks long. It has songs that deal a lot with financial stress, a lot with marriage, a lot with being a dad. And there's several songs that deal directly with fatherhood, and I actually suffered. It was not diagnosed, but from everything I read and researched, seemed like a pretty textbook example of postpartum depression in men. From what I understand, it usually spikes around 3 months after baby is born, and right after Holland was born at the 3-month mark, it was beginning of November. So the weather turned crappy, and seasonal affective disorder
Is real.
Yeah, I'm sure it made it quite easier for the big change in hormones that comes with postpartum depression. And I had also just run a marathon, my third marathon, in which I qualified for the Boston Marathon. So it was like this big mountaintop achievement, and a lot of runners experience kind of a dip after that when running is no longer part of their daily routine, and they ask themselves what next. Their next race is probably several months out, if they even have one scheduled. And it did not.
Kind of a perfect storm.
Exactly. It was a perfect storm. So the winter of 17-18 was really, really terrible mentally for me. And it was out of that season that I started working through those old demos I had of songs and really seeing where I could take them and how far I could push them in any direction, kind of see what stuck. So worked on those very consistently throughout the year. 2018 brought in more guest musicians than I ever have before. One of the most musicians I've ever had on a record before is 4, maybe 5. And there might have been 8 to 10 musicians on Little Flock. Extremely proud of the music, and I think I'm most proud of the lyrics and how maybe too close for comfort they are, but that's really what I wanted to share. For anyone who knows my story and really pays attention to the lyrics, I think they'll find that it's maybe uncomfortably honest, which is all I really cared about with making that record, was really communicating myself and really being brutally honest about myself and with whoever's listening.
Can we play one for people?
Absolutely.
What would be your choice?
Til Death Do Us part is coming to mind as one that might be good. It deals a lot with fear and anxiety. It's actually, I consider it a very heartbreaking song. It's about when you get married, you don't really think about what you mean saying you're going to be married till death do you part. A lot of marriages end in divorce, which is a different story, but a good case scenario, a great case scenario, is that your marriage is successful and it ends with one or both of you dying. And when I really realized what those words meant, it was heartbreaking to think about myself or Brooke passing away and the other person being left to live some amount of time alone. In the verses, I'm singing about that anxiety and that fear, and then I wrote the choruses with more of a voice of reason, and I had Brooke sing those choruses saying, don't let your mind entertain these thoughts. Why do you let your mind go this place? But I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, so that's where I go all the time. Thinking about death and melancholy stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. We're going to play for you right now.
The hands of time are gripping my throat as days pass by. I'm starting to choke up one by one. Our future's length wanes and I'm panicking. It's starting to rain. Don't let your mind entertain these thoughts. Think of each day and the blessings it brought. Don't let your mind get ahead of itself. Try not to think of how this will end. But the cold hard truth is unwilling to bend. We'll say goodbye for the last time someday. It's unfair, it's unkind, but it's the only way. Don't let your mind entertain these thoughts. Think of each day and the blessings it brought. Don't let your mind get ahead of itself. I can't keep the voices at bay. They're whispering in my ear. Paralyzation grows stronger, saying there's no room for fear. When we said I do, we weren't thinking of our last days alone. So when I say I love you, I mean all of what that entails. And I need you to know what I know. Oh Lord, please bless us with long lives and help me not to think of when death will arrive.
You've definitely shared so much with us today. We're super grateful. And I do think there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this and hopefully will just maybe experience a new realm of freedom. Oh, I have kids and I can still pursue my passion or whatever it is. So what would you say to those people who maybe have been scared to take the next step or the first step? What encouragement could you share with them?
I think it's much more risky, and to me it's scarier to not take the step, to not try something that you feel called to do, or you feel like that spark of excitement. Life is too short to let those pass by without at least giving it a shot. You can always go back to what you were doing before. You can always say, I gave I gave it a try. It wasn't for me. On to the next thing. Failure is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just something that is an answer. This is not the right thing for you at this time. Maybe later, maybe not, but go try something new. Fear is a liar. It's always there, but it is easily out-talked.
I love that.
I love that too.
I feel like that's always what we say.
Yeah.
Is there a more intellectual way to respond? I'm very inspired by what you just said.
I love that you're recognizing that there is a risk either way.
Right. Well, not making a conscious decision, you're making a decision.
Exactly.
And oftentimes that decision is, well, I'm not so sure if I want to move to the RV, and then someone else is going to make that decision for you.
Right.
So
yeah, you're sealing your fate.
Right.
Either way.
Yeah. You got to make a decision. Why not pick the one that is at least exciting and is going to be something you look back on and you say, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I at least tried.
Yeah, and I loved what you said about failure, because I'm trying to think, maybe there are, but I'm trying to think if there's ever been anything that I've tried, and regardless of the outcome, did I wish I hadn't tried it?
Yeah.
You know, because like you're saying, it's an answer, and doesn't that drive you crazy to not know the outcome?
Right.
So it's like, try it, what do you have to lose? And then regardless of the answer, you'll at least know.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I've never thought about that before, how the fear of the unknown is actually on both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Like, not know.
Because your brain is exploding.
The what could have been is just as bad as the I don't know how this is going to turn out if I try it. Like, it's still the fear of the unknown either way. That's awesome.
That is cool.
Also, your hair is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Off topic, I did see this story you guys posted about how you and Brooke have different hair goals. And I can totally relate, because I have expectations for my husband's hair that he does not receive in any way. He's actually, anyway.
Yeah,
I did at one point convince him to grow it out, and he has since told me that was the worst idea ever.
Really?
So
tell him failure's an answer, Dan.
we know. We have our outcome.
Yeah.
We know now.
Yeah, I got Brooke a nice hair dryer for Christmas because the one she had was from like middle school. I was trying to use it, and first she laughed at me because I couldn't handle the heat setting. I was like, it's burning my head. Like, this is terrible. So I had it on cold air. And she was telling me how to comb it a certain way. I'm like, I got this. It's my hair. You and I have different visions.
Listen.
Different visions.
Sometime I'll let you do my hair the way you envision it.
Sometime.
That's hilarious. We're going to check back with you about, where you're at in a year. And then we're also going to check back the day Brooke gets to style your hair.
Yes.
Okay.
So
follow-up episodes coming soon.
Awesome. How can people connect with you online?
I am very active on Instagram. My music also has a website, thestoffs.com. My Instagram handle is Eric J. Stoff. I'm all for connecting with people online.
Where's your music?
It is anywhere and everywhere, except commercials that pay. It's not there yet. It is on Spotify. That's where I've been pushing most people. It's also on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Play, Deezer. That's a thing. I don't know anything
it's a
about
thing.
it.
So it's broadly distributed.
Did you say geezer?
Yeah. It's on Geezer and Deezer.
We will definitely link to all of your info in the show notes.
Totally.
So everybody please go listen to all his music.
And Eric Stoff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I never thought of my life as a scary one to live, even though I'm kind of always in constant fear. But it's been awesome to talk to you guys about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really inspiring.
Thanks so much for joining us today. If you like what you've heard, take a second to subscribe or share it with a friend. There's plenty more information in our show notes, including a link to where you can listen to our music on Spotify. See you next week.
Hey, it's just the mailman. It's okay.
Guard dog.